All right, today I'm interviewing Mark Stern, a serial entrepreneur and founder of the Custom Box Agency. And it's an experienced design agency that specializes in optimizing the customer journey through direct mail and enhancing the overall customer experience. And who doesn't want to do that? So listen, if you have a business or a product and you really want to take it to the next level to increase customer retention, engagement, and even gamification, and just provide this world-class experience for your customers to keep them coming back and becoming super fans, this episode is for you. Trust me, there are some golden gems in here. You're going to want to take some notes. We're going to get into it in just a moment. All right. Today on the Partner Up Profits podcast, we have Mark Stern, who's the founder of Custom Box Agency. Just want to say, Mark, thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm excited to talk about everything you've got going on.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. It's good to be here.
First off, before we get started, I always like to ask people what's something interesting about themselves that maybe not a lot of public knowledge is out there about them.
Something interesting. Well, I was born and raised in Alabama. I'm a lefty and I come from a family of gingers and we're Jewish. So it's like to grow up Jewish left-handed in the state of Alabama from a family of gingers is a weird upbringing, but I will say it's a huge part of, I think, who I have become to this day. Because you had to learn very young. And the Bible Belt, Alabama, I had to grow up with this element of there's something different about you than everyone else. And it was something that you learned to embrace this part of yourself, even when no one else is like you. So I think that piece taught me some lessons that I didn't realize at a younger age, that it's okay to be different than everyone else.
That's a good way to look at it then. I like that lesson. And right now you're residing in Austin, Texas, right?
I've been in Texas now coming up to 10 years, which is crazy.
Yeah. And you're coming to Canada.
And I'm coming to Canada. Yes, first time. It's crazy too.
You come visit our igloos and everything else we do up here. But no, Canada's great. Best time to come is in the summertime. And you're on the brink of that right now. But I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I was excited because this integrates seamlessly with partnerships, affiliate programs, influencer programs, as well as customers. We're going to get into exactly what Mark does and why that's a superpower. But Mark, what would you consider to be your superpower in general? I know you got businesses going on, you're an entrepreneur, but like, what's your zone of genius?
So the way I would describe my zone of genius is I see things in pictures and visuals. So like, whereas people like to use a lot of words, for me, I can design and create something that can sell. Like for me, this is what I did in corporate America, which is once I see it, and like for me, how I see strategy is I know how to lay out strategy visually. I know how to translate it from how I see it down to paper and utilize that as a means to sell or to convince people as to why they should take that action. So visualizing strategy, I would say, is really my superpower. Whereas a lot of people like words, I don't like to read a lot of words. I'm just like a 3-year-old in the sense I just want pretty pictures that tell me the same story.
I like that too. It's cool too. Like as we get more modern technology coming out and more learning methodologies, I'm a visual guy. Like, so I love YouTube whenever I want to learn something. And if you can't communicate a strategy clearly to a team, sometimes visually it's better to do it with pictures. So that's great. And I'm a strategist at heart, but sometimes I can be guilty of like using words and not great at like producing a visual that's like, oh, I instantly get that. So that's great. I admire that specialty zone of genius for you.
Awesome. Yeah. It's amazing because so many people, like, they have the strategy, they just don't know how to translate it. So I can't tell you how often it's almost like, I hear what you're saying, but that's not what this says. So,
and look at your backdrop. Like I was asking Mark before the call, I thought that those were actually like CD cases, but those are beautiful designs that, your teams put together. And we're going to get into that. But how did you, like, what was your transition? Because it's always interesting to hear entrepreneurial journeys. This could be a whole different podcast, but like, what brought you into this light now? What did you used to do? And did you ever see yourself moving into this new business?
Oh, never. Growing up in Alabama, I was told that there's like the natural progression to life, that you graduate high school and you go to college, you graduate college and you get the dream job, then you go to grad school and then you get the dream job and the house with the white picket fence and the family and, life is great. And that was like what everyone that I knew, like that's the path. And I would joke that I was the poster child of that because I do everything to the extreme. And I was like, I'm crushing this corporate American game. I was president of my high school, my college, and my grad school. I had one job before between undergrad and grad school and one between grad school and becoming an entrepreneur. because I just go all in on everything that I do. And it wasn't until 2012 I got my MBA at Duke University and started to work for Deloitte Consulting at the time. I was $165,000 in student loan debt. And so the idea of like becoming an entrepreneur felt irresponsible. How could you think of ever going off and starting your own business when you have all this debt? And, it took me until like I stumbled across the digital marketing realm because I went to this conference called A-Fest. It's done by Mind Valley. I had no business being at this conference. And all of a sudden there were all these digital marketers there, which I had no idea. I remember sitting at dinner and someone told me that they just spent 25K on a mastermind. And I looked at them like they lost their mind. Like, what is this thing that you have done? And it was almost like at that time, it was tough because, and that was in 2013. It was like the world that I knew, the corporate realm that everyone around me was, pursuing. It was like the bubble I lived in had shattered. And all of a sudden I got exposed that there's a different way that you could live a fulfilling life on your own terms and become an entrepreneur. And it literally took me years. I convinced my employer to pay for me to go to Funnel Hacking Live and Traffic and Conversion and all the conferences. I would join coaching programs even though I couldn't do anything. And it took till 2018 when I finally had a moment that I'm like, I can pursue partnership at Deloitte and that's the rest of my life, or the unknown of entrepreneurship and see, what am I truly capable of doing? And so that was the transition in 2018. It really felt like if I had pursued corporate America, it would kill me. Like that's the feeling, the sensation I had at the time. So I made the jump ship, had no idea what my business would be. And through those efforts, for me, the biggest problem I think we solve is one, a lot of people don't know what they're asking their customers to do. So really understanding the customer journey is such a personal pain point that I've experienced that I want to simplify for other people to get them results faster. And two, this dichotomy of an extreme digital age where everything has gone so digital. We used to be all physical. To me, there's a hybrid that's really powerful that if I'm asking you to do something, I would rather be in a position, because this is what I wanted, where I can send you all the tools and resources you need, whether it's a course, whether it's an info product, a virtual event, software as a service platform. How can I ship you what you need to blend these worlds of physical and digital to get you results faster? So that's kind of where Custom Box Agency was born. And COVID was just kind of putting fuel to the fire since we were all in quarantine. This business just really took off during that time frame because we had a means to get things to people.
Interesting. I mean, you said so many things there with regards to kind of overcoming the societal conventions, the things that we're all brought up to believe, and similar paths a lot of entrepreneurs where we go through school, we end up in debt, we end up with a career we hate, and we're like, oh crap, what did I just do in this whole process? And it's like, I got to get out. And, we build this perfect life, but then it's like not the perfect life. So I love those journeys. I mean, those journeys are inspirational for people. And then also it drives a mission of something bigger than yourself that you can also integrate with other companies and businesses looking to achieve the same outcome and go through the same process you probably went through and relate to that. But you mentioned the business, you mentioned the Custom Box Agency, and you also mentioned visitor value as well as customer value over time and how that relationship's built. And there's so many marketing ways, to do this. Of course, there's email series, there's ways to nurture your leads and lists. But let's talk about why you picked the Custom Box route. What is it? Where was the gap in the market, and what was the opportunity for you, and how did you guys solve this and become, the better version of it in the market?
No, thank you. So for me, the biggest thing anchors on the customer journey. So this is how do you take people from you're selling this outcome. So at the end of the journey, the thing that you're selling, whether it's help you scale a business to 6 or 7 figures, whether it's a software as a service, whether it's in the best shape of your life, the end is what you're ultimately selling. Do we have a clear pathway taking people from the beginning, which we call start here or the onboarding, all the way to that end result? If I know what that pathway looks like, I can gamify it. I can incentivize behavior because I know how to reward you. I can collect data at pivotal points so I can understand where people are excelling or falling short when going through my process. I can leverage that intel as sales collateral. Now I have a journey that when I get into the sales process, I can say, here's the journey you're going to go through to get this result. So it builds confidence to say, I have a recipe that is a repeatable recipe to get people this outcome. I can leverage that same thing to show you new ways to spin off and do expansion packs. How can I extend customer lifetime value? I can seed your other products and services as well. So this idea of the customer journey of how are you going to take them from start here to that outcome, and really understanding that piece to me is typically the businesses that I see, and I've been exposed to hundreds of businesses in the startup space. They have the vision, but they don't have the pathway to connect people from the beginning to the end. And if you don't have that beginning, it leads to overwhelm. When people feel overwhelmed, what are they going to do? They're ultimately going to leave, or they're going to disappear, or they're going to ask for a refund. So we see those higher attrition rates because people don't want to feel overwhelmed. They feel overwhelmed. They don't want to feel like a failure. So it's easier to hide and escape. For us, like understanding that is there's 3 types of journeys too. What I talked about is very much a delivery journey, but there's also an acquisition journey. How do you get people from finding out about you to buying your products and services? And then there's a retention journey, which is all about recognition and seeing people and celebrating them at pivotal milestones, all the way to introducing the next way to serve them. So all of this, looking at the journey, is I have been part of so many programs that I'm like, I just don't understand how you are actually getting people the results you claim they are, because there's no clear pathway. Box for us is just the vehicle. We really are in the business of retention, but Box is the way that we're able to then say, here's the experience, but how do I take all obstacles off the table? Well, I can do it by building this Box experience around your business, gamifying the way that you serve and sending it to your people. So, and I'll use as an example, a printer. If you have a course and you're making me print out all the resources for that course, that's an obstacle because you're assuming I have a printer, it has paper, it has ink, it's hooked up to my computer, and I'm organized. If one of those things go wrong, although my intent is to do your product or service, that may be a way that says someday I'm going to get to it. Whereas if I ship it to you, that excuse comes off the table. And most of our boxes, they range from like $15 to $30. And if this is a $100, $500, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000 program, if spending $15 to $30 is the difference between people getting a result and not, I would do it every day of the week, because I want people to know that if they're working with me, I will set them up for success to my best ability.
It's a lot of work for business to do this. I'm just thinking, like to put all this together in-house, sometimes you don't have the team to do it. Sometimes you don't have the know-how. And you mentioned the printer company, and that's like, so I think just thinking of the company coming in, listening to this podcast, what are typical journeys that they can take? And you mentioned a few, but what are like the kind of lowest hanging fruits of how do you work with a business to add more value instantly, regardless of what business they're in? And how does that change from the person who's more advanced? And how can you, it's like, what's the journey for the customer? In your case, the person actually buying the service from you, like what's the beginner point and what's the more advanced level they can go through?
Yeah, it's interesting. So for us, the most important thing is it's not about, so we say it's the tale of 2 journeys. Every business has 2 journeys. The first journey is how people navigate through all your products and services. So if you have a lower ticket product, a mid ticket, a high ticket, and you have a clear value ladder, that's one journey. So that's more of like an overarching journey. But for every stop along that value ladder, if you have a course or a coaching program, each of these sub programs can have its own journey. And that's the level that we build the box upon. Is I can build a box upon a course. I can build a box around a coaching program, a software as a service platform, service providers, e-com products. There are things that are really easy for me to build a box around at a micro level, but I need to understand the overarching vision, because with any good experience, you need to be seeding your universe, all the different ways that you can serve people. When people work with us, how we start is we want to make it as easy as possible. So imagine having us plug into your business, because we do have the capabilities to not only help you strategize, which is where, for me, that's my playground, is how do I get into your business and understand the overarching vision of what you're trying to achieve, and then what you're trying to achieve in the program. Because we go through our clients' programs as they are. And ultimately, when they come and work with us, typically they fly to Austin and spend a day with us, where we will break down their business and help them reimagine what is possible. My role is not to pivot you. My role is to show you what your options are, because when you blend physical and digital, people don't know what's possible. It opens up a whole nother realm that a digital only product can't do. After we basically go through and build out a blueprint, we have a whole design team. So my team is about 30 people, and we're able to then take that idea and then bring it to life. And if you see behind me, each of these are very different campaigns that we've launched with clients. But with all of our clients, we can replicate your branding. We can help you reimagine your branding or up level your existing branding. But the look and feel from physical to digital has to be one experience. So this is where, for us, a typical box build is like 30 to 50 assets all in. That's pretty standard for what we do. When it's organized and arranged, it's very elegant and very well thought through. The final part is what we call delivery. We have a warehouse in Austin, Texas. So we can send things into production. We are a distributor. We can get everything to the warehouse, assemble it, and then pack and ship it out globally. So we have partnerships with FedEx and UPS. So that end-to-end solution, what we try and solve for some of our clientele is you don't have to figure out the strategy part and what's possible. You don't have to figure out the design part and make sure it's print ready or press ready. You don't have to figure out the fulfillment part. We make it easy for you because we've already figured out the complexity, which is where I thrive. I love that complexity. We want to make it as seamless as possible. So for you, we get to pick your brain and just show you what's possible.
I love that you love complexities.
Yeah, I mean, that's the curse and the blessing of coming from crazy corporate world and the amount of years that I did. Because I'm like, if it's too simple, anyone could take it and run with it. I have no issue giving people the blueprint to my business. It's just a lot for you to have to figure out the pieces to come bring it together. But for me, it's like eating candy.
Yeah, and that's the key. It's like it can be done, but it's like, do you want to do it? Are you the expert in it? Do you enjoy doing this? So I'm going to ask some more beginner questions, kind of zooming back out. And I like to I don't like to know anyone's business fully to the point that I don't have any like beginnerish questions. So I purposefully don't want to dive too deep into it. But Are you providing full end to end? Like, hey, I've got 500,000 customers. They're each getting a box every single month. I want to give them a custom box experience. Like, I want to switch to you, or is there a bit of like a 50-50 split, or how do you typically work with clients who are like, I'm already not ready to hand over all the boxes, or what's your requirement to work with people? Just like understanding the scope of work.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we try and keep it pretty simple. When the clients come to work with us, you don't even have to know what you want to put in your box. The big thing that we say is we're not in the business of swag boxes. I think people think of swag boxes. We say that swag means stuff without a goal. That's what swag stands for. So the intentionality of the experience, stop sending people stuff. Stuff gets donated, stuff gets thrown out, stuff goes to Goodwill. And so a lot of what we want to show people is like the strategic part of what we do. If you optimize customer journey, what kind of impact can it have? Doesn't matter if you're new or you're well established. It's interesting to see how many synergies exist from multi-6-figure businesses we worked with and multi-8-figure businesses. It's funny to see that there's sometimes very little in terms of how they start to think through the structure of that experience, and then leaving on the table an opportunity that could serve the client at a higher level and also generate additional revenue. So for us, like, we don't want to overcomplicate the process by any means. And so if someone's coming to us just for fulfillment, typically we turn them away because we're not a fulfillment center. We're an agency that has fulfillment capabilities. And the whole reason we built our fulfillment center is just to make sure end to end we can help not only visualize a campaign, but then deliver it to market. And so when clients want to work with us, like, you don't have to use our fulfillment capabilities. You could just come through us for the strategy consulting and do all the design work. But most clients who work with us love that it's a one-stop solution that you don't have to go too crazy on. Sometimes what's nice about a smaller business is there's a lot more flexibility to test versus a more established business that has years and years and years and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of content that's produced that you're trying to force a square peg to fit in a round hole. So there is some simplicities that come as a result of being a little bit smaller and then thinking about, again, I love showing people what's possible when they start to bring the worlds together.
Yeah. And I think the flexibility is something refreshing in the market. You have so much structure out there that kind of limits creativity. And when you limit creativity, it's like, well, I can't see my vision going through. You have nobody to help you with a vision that's bigger than the vision you have in front of you. Yeah. That's why I'm a big fan of that. And for me, I'm a big fan of marketing in general. If I see a billboard that I like, if I hear a line in a movie, I can tie that back to a marketing lesson, a philosophy. And I think the same thing's happening. Kind of, you're talking about digital world and physical world being combined beautifully. When I get boxes now, I pay attention to what kind of boxing they're using. What's the message I'm seeing? What's the inside of it? There's a whole experience. And when you up level that, from my experience, I'd be with customers or, partnerships in general as well, that can change the viewpoint perspective of your company significantly. But I'm wondering, is there like any data you guys have as to like, we walked into this company, they had this retention rate, and then over the next 2 to 3 months of implementing a box, they either saw X, Y, and Z happen, just to kind of associate kind of a data metric to the agency route with the boxing.
Sure. We've seen so many different things. So we've had challenges that they double the conversion when they introduced a box, and then it doubled the back-end conversion rate for their high ticket offer at the end of the challenge, simply by just gamifying. We took, where is it? I can show you right now. I mean, here's a perfect example. It happened with this box, Cutie Ninjas. The client wanted a flight recorder that turned into a detective theme. And so it's like you're the undercover detective coming up with the perfect solution for your own print-on-demand store. And one thing I'll show you is you'll notice that our boxes typically venture small will brand the spine, because one of the things I try and tell people to do is we know from data that the bigger the box, the more likelihood people are going to break it down and throw it out. The smaller the box, the more likelihood people are going to put it on a bookshelf. What I like about that is when you read books, typically you don't throw out a book after you read it. This is a big inspiration as to why we love this size. Because now it's perfectly designed that I can brand the spine and stick it on the bookshelf. And this is kind of when we start to think about the experience. Is there a repeatable nature? People aren't thinking about go through my product now, but if you go through it again in 6 months, you'll have a whole different experience around it. And so this is kind of where, like, how do we start to educate people? Because what's another thing I know you save? You save board games, you save sporting equipment, things that have replayability. If I know that you can utilize it again, the likelihood that you're going to keep it is going to be extended. And I want to take up real estate in your house. So that's one with just this. We just did a virtual event box. It was the highest show up rate at the virtual event in the last 20 years that they've been doing events. Highest conversion rate as a result. The only thing that changed was we went through their experience and optimized and introduced a lot of gamification through the box experience. So boxes don't need to be themes like this. Boxes need to represent and bring you to life in a really powerful way. But again and again, the thing that's really cool about a box versus a digital only product is the perceived value of a really good quality experience is so much higher. And this is kind of where like from what I've seen, if you and I were perceived in the market in the same way, and we sold the same product or service, I feel pretty confident that if I had the physical piece in addition to digital and you only had digital, I feel like I would beat you every day of the week, assuming that everything else was the same. So the perceived value of now having something that's physical and tangible, because it's not something that most people do, really has this up-leveled perceived value as well. So we've seen so many amazing things, but I think this is why I'm starting to double and triple down even with our own products, because it's just fun. And there's so much you could do with it that we've been testing out. So those are some examples.
Yeah, I mean, you're opening my eyes to what I considered to be the custom box versus the gamification side. And also, I like the bookshelf idea. And I never really thought about that. But like the bigger the box, yeah, it's like, I don't want to keep this in my house. It's too big. But then if it's a small thing, it's like, oh, cool. This could just go on my shelf. You maybe even do like collector's editions. It's like you come out with a different box every 6 months. I don't know what like the strategies are, but that would be interesting to unpack. And the live event, whoever thinks about a box for a live event. I mean, so could you unpack that a little bit more? Because I think that's a really interesting one that also could apply to like for partnerships. If we're organizing community events or you have a mastermind, you just send out an invite. You're like, hey, come to the mastermind or come to this community meetup, and you hope that they attend and they click the link. But how do you guys integrate a box with that and get this better response rate?
Yeah, so great question. And so before I jump into that, what I do want to show you is one of my biggest inspirations. And here's the thing, like I was born in the early 80s. So like so much of my own inspiration is from my own childhood. And then just looking at things saying, how do I repurpose this in a more modern day age? But something that was very transformative for me is, are you familiar with Spartan races? The mud runs? I don't know if you've ever done one.
Never done them, but they look interesting.
Yeah. What was so cool about it was when I did my first Spartan race, I wanted the medal at the end of the race. But when I did my first Spartan, I only anticipated doing just one. And not only did they give me a medal, they then said, congrats on completing the race. Now go for your trifecta. And they gave me a third of a medal. So now they created this open loop that was like, if you really want to complete it, the rule is you have to do a sprint, a super, and a beast, 3 different tiers of race in the same calendar year. So for me, when I had the first wedge and then I got my second wedge, had you told me at the beginning of 2015 when I did my first Spartan that I would be doing a half marathon mud run, I would have said you lost your mind. But they created the structure that pushed me to achieve something that I didn't think was possible. And in doing so, as a business, they're extending lifetime value. They got me to pay them a lot more money as a result of this. And so this wasn't, you can see the complete trifecta medal. I was not in good shape at this time. And I was like, if I have to drag my butt across that finish line, I'm getting this half marathon wedge because this is what I wanted. But it was the realization that I was capable of so much more. With the virtual events, you can create and emulate so many things like that. I can say that this is box 1 of 4. And if you're starting my journey, if you really want to complete the anthology of the series, you have to keep playing get box 2 of 4, get box 3 of 4, 4 of 4. And then I may introduce in new ways. I think people aren't looking for multiple mentors to get them a result. I think they want to find the one good mentor that can understand where they are and help them get an outcome as fast as possible. And so that's kind of where, like, if the virtual event is, or the live event either, is step 1, then you can start to plant the seeds of what the future steps are, even in the first box experience. When you have a virtual event or live event, you have a day 1, a day 2, a day 3. I may put an envelope in there that says, do not open this until day 1. And then you get to open the day 2 and the day 3 and reveal surprises as you go through the event. So it's the anticipation of what else can I unlock? What else is going to get revealed? And other things that we love to play with, whether it's a live or virtual event, is QR codes, because there's so many different things that you can do with QR codes that no one is tapping into with the marketing lens, because we built our own QR code platform for this reason. But if we stopped thinking about a QR code as a way to access a menu and more of a way to beam information to our customers, I can create a water bottle that when you scan it on Monday, let's just say if it's a water bottle and you were in the fitness space, it's the Monday workout. But if you scan it on Tuesday, the same QR code can get rerouted to the Tuesday workout and the Wednesday workout. Or I can preset different time frames for it to become new things. So all of a sudden, this idea of a physical to digital, I can control the dialogue, because if it's always changing, one thing that we find is if something is always changing, are you more or less likely to save it? Typically, we find that people are more likely to change it because they want to see the next experience that's going to be revealed. QR codes are a perfect gateway to get that information. So with the virtual events, with live events, the other piece of this I'd tell you is stop looking at a box as a box and look at it as a container that can hold your dreams. Look at it as a container that can hold your story. A capsule to capture that moment in time. All of a sudden, the box is no longer a box. The box could be so much more than just that.
Interesting. There's a lot of creative strategies that I'm learning from you right now that are getting the juices flowing. So this is great. I appreciate the insights on the wins you've been experiencing. Now, I always ask everyone on the show, like I call it the partner up profits power move. It's essentially like, how do you get the foot in the door of a person that you've been trying to get a hold of, or to get that email answered, that phone call picked up? Let's put the box as the mechanism now. If you want to get a hold of like the top podcaster in the world, provided you have his address and his approval to send him something, how are you going to get his attention using this mechanism?
So there's a couple of different ways. If it was someone that I really want, something that we're about to be testing out with one of our own products is we're going to be getting 100 boxes printed that the influencer is printed on the box. And then we're going to be able to take a picture of the influencer on the box, and then we can send it. Because even if you don't give me your address, I probably can get your attention by creating something that I want to send you that is already customized to you. That's something that we can do right now. It's really pretty easy to do. Other things that we're going to be looking at scale is how can we then, let's just say we did have your address, send you a box experience, you scan a QR code, and the message at scale is customized to you. So you see a video that comes up that's me talking to you by name in that box experience. That can be done today with AI. So how do we start to leverage a lot of the key technologies that are coming down to create a more massive personalization video or experience? A lot of people think of video boxes, that you can have the video screen inside the box. We don't really play with video boxes that much. We can, but video boxes are going to cost you $30 to $50 a pop just for that video screen. Whereas I can leverage something at scale and create something really cool for a lot less than that. That is just more than just a screen that eventually the battery is going to burn out. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, I've got those screens. We ordered a bunch like 5 years ago. The problem with those two, the battery does die. So you got to hope that it gets there and that, they don't have to juice it back up. And then it also gets stopped a lot of times through customs, depending on where you're sending it from. And they're like, so all of a sudden I get it back and I've got like a charge on it, and it hasn't been a great experience. So I was going to ask about like the LCD video component, but I like the QR code. It's something easy. And the other thing too about the video cards I don't like that this offers a solution to is that, on my phone, first of all, I can see it. It's easy. It's right there. This big bulky card, first, what am I doing with it? Feels like a bit of waste in a way, especially with the LCD component and all that. Like, what do you do with this stuff after? And it kind of screams at you when you open it. Like whatever messages, no like quick pause. Nobody knows what's happening. It's kind of chaos, friction. But I like that idea of the QR code. I like the branded boxes. And just personal question, what's the like MOQ, minimum order quantity, on like a custom box in general? Like what are your starting points? And you don't have to say pricing, but just like what do you go to? What are the minimums?
Yeah, I'm happy to go to that. For us, we don't really have minimums. As long as you get that this is a game that the more you get, the less it is per unit, the less you get, the more it is per unit. Typically what we recommend is doing a minimum of 250. Just because by the time you do 50 or 100, you might as well do 250 because the setup and the labor costs are going to get amortized anyways. And that's going to be the big expense. The good news is a lot of our boxes are heavy on the paper. And with paper, like this is where I'm like, stop with the Yeti mug, like stop the Yeti mug or the coffee mug that you think everyone needs, but you don't drink. Like, stop sending people that stuff. Give them what they need to be set up for success. And so costs come down significantly. And even with that, we can do scratch offs. Like when you go to the gas station, the like scratch offs, any modality, anything that you've seen out there, we're going to figure out a way to do it. And so that's kind of where I'm like, we say the common price breaks are 250, 500, 1,000, 2,500, 5,000. So, and those ranges, when clients work with us, we give you the breakdown for all of them. You can choose if you want to do 250 or if you want to do 5,000, but at least you see off the get-go, what are the different price breaks? So for us, I don't care what your minimum is. If you want to do 50, just know you're going to be paying a premium versus doing a 2.
I love that. And it seems like an easy starting point to get into it if you wanted to test this and kind of go bigger. But to that point, what's the best way to people get in contact with you? What are the steps to like just see like if this is a right fit for them? Where should they go and what should they do?
Yeah, they can go to customboxagency.com. There's going to be a little form at the top right-hand corner. You can fill it out and get in touch with a member of my team. If you have questions, people can always message me on Facebook too. So they want to find me that way.
Cool. And are there any deals? Can we mention an audience, a partner of profits, and they can get something special?
Oh yeah. So so we are about to launch a product that I'm really excited about. And Joey, I'll get you out one too.
Cool.
Once I get it in my hands, called Activate. So we have built a system almost laying out your customer acquisition strategy into a board game. And so it's a tool and resource that's about to hit market. I'll send more details, but activatedeck.com is going to be where you can find more information about that. And for your listeners, I'm happy to get on. We can do a special workshop for them as well.
Nice.
We wanted to, a lot of people just get so hung up on visibility and how do I increase my visibility? This is a fun, interactive way to visualize your customer acquisition strategy. And a lot of what we're using is almost like a board game board and a deck of cards. But again, boxes don't need to be a display mailer. Boxes can be any shape, size, finish that you can imagine. It's really the heart of it is give people the tools that they need.
Love that. And thank you for the hookup. And I think at the very least, provided it sounds like somebody who has a product, who's got a mission, who's got already things in the game, it's a perfect opportunity for them to leverage this. And it's like kind of hands-free in terms of you guys handling it. And I've seen the benefits of this. We just haven't practiced it enough. So you and I will keep chatting about how to bring this into more clients' hands as we continue our conversation. Awesome. Mark, that concludes the formal part of the interview. I'd like to also go into a rapid fire, get to know Mark a little bit better with the rapid fire question round. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. These are first thing that come to mind. You can't spend a lot of time on it. We're going to start with an easy one. Just your favorite food.
Probably pizza. I love pizza.
Best memory.
Best memory, spending time with my father, going to Machu Picchu.
Cool. All right. If you had another go round and you got to write a new story, not saying the story wasn't great, what would it be in 30 seconds or less?
Another go round. I think that I would have trusted my instincts and leaned into my gut a lot earlier. And probably started as an entrepreneur in my early 20s.
Getting back some time. Yeah, I like that. Speaking of time, like what's your best productivity hack you've implemented just in your life in general?
Productivity hack. I hire an executive assistant. And I'm saying that because the amount of time I got back as a result of having someone owning my inbox is huge. And just the stress, because I came from corporate America and every time my phone would vibrate, I would dive for it. To be able to take email off has it's been transformative. It took me until this year to do it too.
Yeah. If someone was asking me what to do sooner than later, when you can when you can get to that level of business to have an EA or somebody managing your inbox, or just go through the inbox zero type of training, game changer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I've got like 5 inboxes, and I'm sure I'm not the guy with the most inboxes. But this is kind of a trick question. Most people don't want to retire, but in your traditional retirement years, what do you see yourself doing? What are you continuing to do?
Oh my gosh. So this is a conversation we have a lot too in some of my circles, but I'm such a worker. I love to work, and I just love my business because the amount of times that I'm like, I would love, like, this would be really cool to do and to see it come to life. Like retirement years, I could say, yeah, I could see myself wanting to go on vacations or whatnot, but I would get so bored with that element that I would want to create, because I'm just a creator. I love to see the process of thinking through the strategy and watch it come to life. And I mean, I think this is why with these box experiences, I just freaking love it. So probably not your favorite answer, but probably is a very typical entrepreneur answer.
No, I hear that a lot. And I think that the big bridging of the gap is like, how far are you from that vision today? And if you're not so far from that, then you're living the dream, right? Like, it's about bridging that gap from, I want to really get there and just do less of this. And it's like, okay, well, let's get you there now. And that's more of the passion side of business for me. And like you said, you talk about it with a lot of your circles.
And one thing I will say though, is we've been building this business for a few years now, and it took till this year. And I think for me, the mental shift that I needed to go through to let go and build more of a hierarchy in my team structure, which has in turn bought back my time. But a big part of it was mindset's the thing that every entrepreneur needs, but no one wants to pay for. And the more I realized that, rewiring the mindset to be ready to grow the business is huge. Yeah.
Mindset is one of the biggest skills that is underappreciated and not respected. And everyone thinks that they do it. And it's like, we don't practice it as much as we should. Yeah. But you mentioned a book title. I don't know if you know the book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, but what's a book that changed your life?
Dan is amazing, by the way. And he's also Canada. So he's your people. So a book that changed my life in the last year was Who Not How. So Benjamin Hardy, I know a lot of people have read his latest one, which is 10X is easier than 2X. But Who Not How was one of those that got me to stop in my track. And it was like the right book at the right time. If you've not read it, really the principle is exactly what the title is. Stop asking how to do this, figure out who's the who to do this, because that's going to free you up to be able to grow and scale your business in a right way. He just talks about the 4 freedoms. Great.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, and I'm familiar with the framework too. And it's powerful when you start looking at it like that. And in terms of, again, we go back to the boxing topic of conversation today. You could learn how to do all this, but and the how is there for you. You said you provide them the blueprint, but it's like, who's the who that does this really great? And what are you going to you're going to lose. There's an opportunity cost if you're going to go try to take something on versus hiring someone else to do it that's a specialist in doing that. So that's one of my favorite frameworks. I read a different book by Sam Carpenter called Work the System, and it dealt with the same concept, just differently worded. All right, now we get a little bit deeper here. What do you want to be remembered for?
The impact of what we do is so powerful. And so what I would love to be remembered for is what is so incredible is when people come to our offices and see what's possible, all of a sudden it's like you opened up their eyes to this idea that everything around you that you see, you could have in your own business and create for your own business. The only limitation is, what's between your 2 ears. And so kind of that element of, if I can unlock in entrepreneurs this idea of a new sense of what is possible, and that becomes my legacy. We see it every single time a client comes to Austin. When they get it, they can't unsee it.
Mm.
And if I can share that perspective, that would be for me the best legacy that I could have ever asked for. So I don't know. I want people to have that essence of walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and you realize that anything is possible. So that is the
I
lens.
love that you can do that with boxes too. And it's, it's just the mechanism. Obviously there's a bigger thing here.
Yeah.
But that's great. I really like that. And not being able to unsee something that's got a positive impact in your life is pretty profound. Whether you have kids or it's your former self or just somebody you're kind of talking with, what's a skill you'd recommend developing as early on in life as possible?
So the reason I'm going to say networking and building relationships with people, and that may be very cliche, is simply because if you play the entrepreneur game by yourself, you're signing up for a much harder game. And, I hold a belief that I truly want other people to win. And therefore, law of reciprocity states that other people want me to win. And so with that, the other piece of this, I would say, is stop making it hard for other people to help you win. If you can't clearly articulate what it is you do, if you are someone that does Facebook ads and YouTube and 100 other things, you're making it so much harder for other people to help you win. Whereas if someone says, who can help me with box or box experiences, instantly it makes it easy for people to say, you should go to Mark Churn. So like early on, build relationships, but be known for like one big thing. Because the more complex you make your everyday, the harder it is for other people to help you win.
I like that one. And the key to networking too, that I've figured out through my life is like, you don't always have to have an intent. And I think you mentioned before the call, you're talking about masterminds where you were part of it, where you didn't really know what the outcome was, but you knew you had to be part of these things because the network was powerful. And, whatever trajectory you're on, I think just being in the right places and seeing opportunities with people, that's a superpower. Some people are like, oh, this isn't my room. And it's like, well, how could it be a room? How could we make this your room, even though it's not really where you want to be today in this moment? So yeah, networking is a huge one. It's a good one that I've heard a few times, but I like hearing different people's perspectives on it. Bucket list item. What's something that you haven't done that you want to do?
I would love to travel more. I would really love to go to Bali. Bali's been on my list for a while. I'd love to see Easter Island. I feel like I've seen a lot of really amazing places, but those are on my list for sure. Spending more time. I haven't traveled as much since like setting up shop in Austin, Texas, just because I came from a world of travel. But like actually getting out and taking more vacations would be something that I'd need to be, but I would ultimately say I really want to see the heads in Easter Island, and I really want to go spend some time in Bali. Those are probably high on my list for bucket list.
There you go. I just got to start manifesting it now and make the intention. Yeah. Last question. We're meeting up in a year from today, whether in physical person or digital environment like today. What are we celebrating that you're working at that you want to see in completion?
Good question. A year from now, what do I want to celebrate? For me, I feel like we're getting closer and closer to truly removing me from the business from a day to day. I don't think I'll ever fully remove from like setting the strategy with a client, but a year from now, it would be amazing to see us 5x the business. We've not spent a dime in marketing or sales. It's all been a word of mouth business. And this is why masterminds and being part of the right communities are really invaluable, because you start to build connections with people. But yeah, where do I want to be for a year from now? Book is on my list. So I would probably say celebrating the launch of a book, getting on more bigger stages would be on my list. We're starting to get on lots of stages. But having a book, I'm going to say book. Sorry, I have to talk this one because I'm so picture and book is word. So like, I feel like a part of me dies when I have to write copy. But I also know that that's such a pivotal part of, spreading our message and such a flagship thing. So that's what I'm going to say. Celebrating the book, because I'm like, I can't believe I did this. Never thought I could do it without pretty pictures.
Well, there you go. In a year from today, we'll circle back. We'll set a reminder, follow up with Mark. How's the book going?
That's a cool question. I had to get there.
I like talking things out. Sometimes I have to like process it all verbally before I can actually formulate the actual end thought. So you and I share that. I totally appreciate it. Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I think what you're doing is incredible, and just the creative genius that you have with regards to just the boxing component of it, which everyone just thinks, I'm going to put my product in it, I'm going to ship it. But the creativity behind it and retention strategies and everything with the events and like partnerships, you opened my eyes to a lot of new opportunities. So thank you.
It was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
All right, guys. Thanks for showing up today. We will see you on the next episode. Take care.